at least through session. We'll see if maybe at the end I go back. I mean, I was getting a lot of JD Vance comparisons, which you know, can be a little polarizing. So I'm not getting those anymore, which is nice, I guess.
Scotty says it's Spinnaker flashbacks right now.
Oh yeah. I well, you know, I had a beard back in college on occasion. I think I went back and forth more often back then. I've been trying to keep it consistent to not confuse viewers and stuff like I'm a new employee or something.
So first few days of session, what are some of the biggest takeaways that you've seen so far?
Well, let's start with the free kill bill, which I've been covering for quite a few years at this point, speaking with survivors of people who have lost their lives due to medical malpractice that fall into this kind of carve out category where if you're over the age of 25, you're single and you don't have any kids over the age of 25. So this applies to, you know, it could either be a parent trying to sue on behalf of their single adult child or an adult child trying to sue on behalf of their single adult parent, where they cannot claim pain and suffering damages if they lose their loved one to medical malpractice. So there's been an effort to repeal that carve out and kind of level the playing field for everybody for several years, but time after time, there's obviously a big lobbying effort on behalf of hospitals and medical professionals, the insurance industry, that fears by, you know, opening the door to more litigation. We've obviously seen tort reform in Florida recently, so I think that there's kind of a hesitation to open the possibility for more lawsuits. So last year, the effort ran into an issue where they tried to introduce caps for all medical negligence claims for pain and suffering. That was not it wasn't acceptable to the House in the case of last year. This year, we have clean repeal bills that are moving in both chambers. In the first week of session, first day it passed its first committee in the Senate, and second day it passed its first committee in the House. So there's a lot of optimism that we could see this more than 30-year-old law that a lot of people find to be kind of unjust in treating certain people arbitrarily different than others, and blocking their loved ones from seeking justice when they die due to medical negligence.
There's also something that's developing that could have huge implications on constitutional amendments when, like, for example, Amendment 3 or Amendment 4 that both hit over 50% last year but didn't hit that 60% threshold to become law. These citizens initiatives, what's happening with that this week?
Well, so citizen initiatives, there's a constitutional provision in Florida that says that this process has to exist. Citizens have to have the opportunity to put, you know, constitutional amendments on the ballot via referendum, collecting petitions. How that's done is regulated more in state statute. We've seen year after year different bills passed that crack down on third-party petition gathering organizations that, you know, tighten up timelines and make it kind of more and more difficult for these amendments to actually make it to the ballot. This year, well, let's go back to last year. Obviously, there was a lot of controversy surrounding the effort to get Amendment 4 on the ballot. The state's elections crimes unit put out 2 different reports alleging, you know, what the crime unit claimed to be massive fraud in petition gathering, that people's names were being signed to petitions that they never actually signed, that dead people were having their names signed to petitions. So there's 2 different bills that are filed at this point. One in the House that was just heard this week and passed through its first committee, which isn't as severe as the one that we see in the Senate. This one would limit signature collection to 1 general election cycle, so you'd pretty much have 2 years to try and get these, you know, more than 1 million signatures or nearly 1 million signatures. It would also create new sort of financial requirements for the organizations that are sponsoring these petition efforts, requiring them to post $1 million bond, mandating criminal background checks and specialized training for petition circulators, and would also increase a lot of the fines and tighten a lot of the timelines even more. So it's this one's a little bit more similar to what we've seen in years past, but just taking it to, once again, another level, making it more difficult to get these different proposals on the ballot. Now in the Senate, it would pretty much turn the citizen initiative petition gathering process into like a pseudo election where there would be no third party. You wouldn't see somebody standing outside of the courthouse trying to collect petitions. You would have to go to your supervisor of elections office or request via your supervisor of elections office a petition, sign it like a vote by mail ballot almost, and return it to the supervisor of elections office. So both of these are quite controversial. A lot of grassroots organizations sort of rely on the citizen initiative process to try to get popular ideas like legalizing recreational marijuana or like expanding access to abortion on the ballot and giving people an opportunity to vote on these things that otherwise their legislature would likely not take up.
Is the vision here with the ultimate conclusion, if one or both of these somehow come together and would pass, that we see fewer constitutional amendments on the ballot every November or every election cycle?
I mean, there's 3 ways that you can put a constitutional amendment on the ballot. There's a citizen initiative process. There's the state legislature can pass a resolution to put something on the ballot, and then there is the Constitution Revision Commission, which meets once every 25 years. So that's not super exciting. I actually got to cover one of those one time, so I got the lucky, timing of being around when one of the CRCs was meeting. So yeah, I mean, the citizen initiative process is where we see a lot of the really big sort of, whether it's minimum wage being raised or expanding access to pre-K. There have been several initiatives that have passed via the citizen initiative process, and the harder you make it, the less likely you are to see these things meet all the requirements and ultimately make the ballot.
Who had the best bouquet at the opening of the session?
Oh, Rich, I was off the first day. I watched the
you
State
saw
of the
photos
State.
And everything.
I watched the State of the State, but it was more passive watching. I was listening more than watching, so I don't know.
Are they responsible for their own bouquets, or does someone else do that in the chambers with all the flowers that show up?
You always have the
weird questions.
The most
that come
specific
to
questions.
Questions,
I've
yes.
never even thought to ask, but
See,
I could
you gotta
send a text
investigate
message and
that
find
now.
out.
How much taxpayer dollars are going to all the flowers that they're putting out there?
I would hope that perhaps that's provided by their family or something like that, but
We'll see.
I'll ask.
What are we going to be on the lookout for next week, you think?
Oh, that's a good question. I haven't had time to look at this. I'm going to be off most of next week.
Oh, good.
I'm working 13 days on, 1 day off here.
Ooh.
So, yeah, I got a long stretch, and then I get a little time off next week.
You did have a story today about how school districts with declining enrollment numbers may be forced to sell off their properties. What's that all about?
Yeah, so that's a bill that was filed by Pensacola State Representative Alex Andrade. We just kind of almost had to split the story into 2 yesterday because it covers 2 very different things. On one hand, yes, with the land acquisition and retention, if a school district has total enrollment decline over a 5-year period, they would basically be put on a freeze from being allowed to purchase new properties, and then they would have to sell off any lands that are deemed surplus and properties deemed surplus by the Department of Education. The controversy here is, school districts, sometimes they could be losing population overall, but maybe you have one area of a county that's seeing immense growth, or you anticipate it's going to have immense growth, and perhaps there will be a need for a school to be there a few years down the line. So school districts try to plan these things in advance and hold on to land in certain areas where they may anticipate a school may be needed in the future. And this seems to be a little bit of a one-size-fits-all with very little flexibility in terms of allowing school districts some local control to determine where they need properties, where they may need a school in the future. There's also a concern that, the first people in line to buy some of these properties might be charter schools, and kind of further put the ball in the corner of charter schools in terms of the competition between the two. So that bill just passed its first committee in the House this week. It hasn't been heard in the Senate, and I believe there's some different language in the Senate version of the bill. So this was also around last year, failed to pass, so we'll see what happens this year with it.
Sometimes it can sound a little bit convoluted the way the sausage is made, but ultimately this is how government works, and this is how your life is impacted, be it with schools and constitutional amendments and the like, and all the more reason why I want to make sure that we're closely aligned with Action News Jax State Capitol reporter Jake Stofan throughout the session. Enjoy a nice little break before you're right back at it again, and we'll see you again over the next week. All right,
I'll still be watching and reading the newsletters and stuff, so
Absolutely.
I'll try to keep on top of it.
And follow updates on CBS 47, Fox 30, Action News Jax, and at WOKV.com. Friday edition of Jacksonville's